The call came while I was in Tokyo, closing a deal for my investment firm's latest acquisition. Isabella, I hope you don't mind, but I cleaned out your old room while you were traveling, Mom said, her voice carrying that tone of maternal satisfaction that usually preceded news I wouldn't like. I was in my hotel suite overlooking the city, reviewing contracts for the purchase of a small but promising tech startup. At 31, I'd built Meridian Capital into one of the most successful investment firms on the West Coast, with assets under management approaching $2 billion. What kind of cleaning, Mom? Well, you know those paintings you had hanging on the walls? The abstract ones that never made any sense to anyone. My blood went cold. What about them? I threw them away, sweetheart. They were just taking up space, and frankly they were quite ugly. I don't know where you got them, but they looked like something a child could have painted. I set down my contract and walked to the window, trying to process what she'd just told me. Mom, which paintings exactly did you throw away? All of them. There were 3 of those horrible abstract things. Lots of splatters and random colors. I boxed them up and put them out with the trash Tuesday morning. Tuesday morning. Today is Friday. Yes, and I wanted to call you right away, but I thought you might be upset. But honey, now your old room looks so much better. I put up some nice landscape prints I found at HomeGoods. Much more pleasant to look at. I closed my eyes and tried to stay calm. Mom, can you describe the paintings you threw away? Oh, I don't know how to describe them. Just messy-looking things. One had a lot of blue and white splatters, another was mostly yellow and red swirls, and the third looked like someone had thrown paint at a canvas randomly. She had just described 3 original Jackson Pollock paintings that I'd acquired through private sales over the past 2 years. Each piece was worth approximately $89 million, making my collection valued at $267 million total. They had been hanging in my childhood bedroom not because I was storing them there, but because I'd wanted to enjoy them in the space where I'd first fallen in love with art as a child. Mom, those weren't decorations. They were investments. Investments? Sweetheart, I know you're smart about money, but those things were not investments. They were eyesores. They were original Jackson Pollock paintings. Silence. Jackson who? Jackson Pollock. One of the most important American artists of the 20th century. His paintings regularly sell for tens of millions of dollars at auction. Isabella, that's impossible. Those paintings were just random splashes of paint. Mom, I need you to think very carefully. Are you absolutely certain you put them in the trash? Yes, I'm certain. The garbage truck came that afternoon. They're long gone. I sat down heavily in my hotel chair. Do you remember which trash company services your neighborhood? What does that matter? Because I need to find out if there's any possibility of recovering them from the landfill. Isabella, you're scaring me. Are you saying those ugly paintings were actually valuable? Each painting was worth approximately $89 million. You threw away $267 million in artwork. The line went silent except for the sound of my mother's sharp intake of breath. That's not possible, she whispered. It's not only possible, it's documented. The paintings were professionally appraised and insured through Lloyd's of London. Insured? For how much? $267 million total. Oh my God. Isabella, what have I done? You threw away some of the most valuable artwork in private hands because you thought it was ugly. I could hear her starting to hyperventilate. What are we going to do? Can we get them back? Can we call the dump? I'm going to call my insurance company and initiate a claim for total loss due to accidental destruction. Then I'm going to call the waste management company to see if there's any remote possibility of recovery, though after 3 days in a landfill, the paintings are almost certainly destroyed. Insurance claim? Isabella, won't that cause problems? It will cause an investigation. Insurance companies don't pay out $267 million without thoroughly examining every aspect of the loss. What kind of investigation? I thought about how to explain this gently. They're going to want to verify that the paintings were actually destroyed and not stolen or sold illegally. They'll interview you extensively about exactly what happened and when. But I just threw them away. I didn't know. I know that, and you'll need to explain that to them. But Mom, $267 million is enough money that they're going to scrutinize every detail. After hanging up, I immediately called my insurance broker in London. Miss Cavendish, I need to report a total loss of the Pollock collection. The entire collection? What happened? They were accidentally thrown away by a family member who didn't recognize their value. The silence on the other end lasted nearly 10 seconds. Miss Cavendish, did you say thrown away? Put out with household trash and collected by waste management. The paintings are presumed destroyed in a landfill. I've never processed a claim quite like this before. We'll need to send an adjuster immediately to document the scene and interview all parties involved. I'm currently in Tokyo but flying back tonight. The family member responsible is available for immediate interview. We'll have someone there tomorrow morning. And Miss Cavendish, I should mention that a claim of this magnitude will require extensive investigation and documentation. I understand. I have all the authentication documents, purchase records and appraisal reports. Good. You'll need all of that and more. I spent the rest of my time in Tokyo arranging an early flight home and trying to calculate the implications of losing $267 million in artwork. While I could absorb the financial loss, my investment firm was highly profitable, and I had a diversified portfolio worth over $400 million. The cultural loss was irreplaceable. Those Pollock paintings represented a significant piece of American art history, and now they were decomposing in a California landfill. The flight home gave me 12 hours to think about how this had happened. My parents had never understood my interest in modern art, viewing my collection as an expensive and incomprehensible hobby. When I'd started acquiring significant pieces, I'd tried to explain their cultural and financial importance, but those conversations had always been met with polite disinterest. Abstract art is nice for some people, I suppose, Mom had said when I'd shown her photos of my first major acquisition, but I prefer pictures that look like something real. Eventually, I'd stopped trying to share my passion for art with my family. They knew I collected paintings, but they assumed it was a minor hobby rather than a serious investment in cultural artifacts. Saturday morning, I was back at my parents' house in Marin County when the insurance adjuster arrived. James Morrison was a serious man in his 50s who specialized in high-value art claims. Miss Cavendish, I need to see exactly where the paintings were displayed and understand precisely how they were disposed of. I led him to my old bedroom, where Mom's new HomeGoods landscape prints hung in place of the Pollocks. The 3 paintings were hanging here, here and here, I said, pointing to the walls. Each was professionally framed and had been hanging in this room for approximately 18 months. James was taking detailed photographs and measurements. And your mother removed them when? Tuesday morning. She put them in cardboard boxes and placed them at the curb for regular household waste collection. Mrs. Rodriguez, he said to my mother, who had been hovering anxiously in the doorway, I need to ask you some specific questions about what happened. My mother sat down on my old bed, looking pale and shaken. I'll tell you anything you need to know. Can you describe your daughter's art collection as you understood it? I thought they were just decorations. Paintings she'd bought because she liked them. I had no idea they were valuable. Had she ever discussed their value with you? Mom looked at me apologetically. Isabella talks about art sometimes, but I don't really understand that world. She mentions buying paintings, but I assumed they were like any other artwork. A few $100, maybe $1,000 at most. Were you aware that she had insurance on the collection? No, I had no idea. James turned to me. Miss Cavendish, had you ever specifically told your family about the value of these pieces? I thought about this question carefully. I had mentioned that I was building a serious art collection and that the pieces were significant investments. But I had never quoted specific dollar amounts to my family. Why not? Because my family has never shown interest in the details of my art collecting. When I've tried to share information about acquisitions or valuations, the conversation typically shifts to other topics. James was making notes. Mrs. Rodriguez, when you decided to dispose of the paintings, did you consider asking your daughter first? I thought I was doing her a favor. The room looked so cluttered with those ugly paintings. I wanted to make it nicer for when she visits. Did you recognize the artist's name or signature on any of the pieces? I never looked at them that closely. They were just splatters and swirls. I couldn't imagine anyone paying good money for something like that. James spent 2 more hours documenting everything, photographing the room from every angle, and taking a detailed statement from my mother about the timeline of events. After he left, my mother and I sat in the living room in uncomfortable silence. Isabella, I feel sick about this. How could I have known those horrible paintings were worth so much money? They weren't horrible, Mom. They were important pieces of American art history created by one of the most influential painters of the 20th century. But they looked so random. Like accidents. Jackson Pollock's technique was revolutionary. He developed a method of painting that expressed pure energy and emotion through controlled chaos. His work is in major museums around the world. I just don't understand how splashing paint on canvas is worth $89 million. I looked at my mother, a woman who had raised me to value education, hard work, and financial responsibility, but who had never developed an appreciation for the cultural significance of art. Mom, do you understand what I do for a living? You have an investment company. You help rich people manage their money. I identify undervalued assets and help clients build portfolios that preserve and grow wealth across generations. Art is one of those asset classes. So you bought those paintings to make money? I bought them because they represented significant cultural value that I believed would appreciate over time. But more than that, I bought them because they moved me emotionally. I genuinely loved those pieces. Mom started crying. I threw away $267 million because I thought I was cleaning up clutter. You threw away $267 million because you made assumptions about something you didn't understand, and you acted on those assumptions without asking questions. How can you ever forgive me? I thought about her question. The financial loss was devastating but manageable. The cultural loss was irreplaceable. But the underlying issue was more complex than just the destroyed artwork. Mom, this isn't really about forgiveness. It's about understanding. For years, I've tried to share my interests and achievements with this family, and for years, those conversations have been dismissed or ignored. We don't dismiss your interests. When I showed you photos of my first major art acquisition, you said modern art wasn't your thing and changed the subject. When I tried to explain why I was passionate about collecting, you suggested I buy something prettier instead. When I mentioned that my collection was becoming significant, you said it was nice that I had a hobby. But we didn't know it was so important to you. Everything I'm passionate about is important to me, Mom. My career, my investments, my art collection, my philanthropic work, they're all expressions of who I am and what I care about. But this family has consistently treated my interests as less worthy of attention than other people's hobbies. That's not true. Last month at Sunday dinner, you spent 30 minutes discussing Jennifer's scrapbooking hobby and asking detailed questions about her techniques and supplies. When I mentioned acquiring a new piece for my collection, you said, "That's nice," and immediately asked Dad about his golf game. Mom was quiet, apparently thinking about the pattern I described. Maybe we haven't been good listeners. You haven't been curious listeners. There's a difference between being polite and being engaged. 3 days later, James Morrison called with his preliminary findings. Ms. Cavendish, we've confirmed with the waste management company that the materials from your parents' address were disposed of at the Redwood landfill. Given the volume of waste processed and the time elapsed, recovery is impossible. So the paintings are confirmed destroyed? Yes. However, we did find something interesting in our investigation. What's that? The waste management supervisor remembered the collection specifically. He said it was unusual to see framed artwork in household trash, so he took photos before the truck was emptied. My heart jumped. Photos of the paintings. Photos that clearly show 3 framed abstract paintings being loaded into the waste truck. The images aren't high resolution, but they're sufficient to document that the artwork was indeed disposed of as household waste. That's actually good news for the insurance claim. Very good news. It removes any question about the circumstances of the loss. We'll be processing the full claim amount. How long will that take? Given the documentation you've provided and the waste management company's cooperation, we should have this resolved within 60 days. After hanging up, I sat in my Meridian Capital office looking out at San Francisco Bay. The insurance payout would make me financially whole, but it wouldn't restore 3 irreplaceable pieces of art history. More importantly, it wouldn't address the underlying family dynamic that had led to this situation. My phone rang. It was my mother. "Isabella, I've been doing research about Jackson Pollock." "Oh." I spent the last 3 days reading about his life, his technique, his influence on art. I watched documentaries, visited museum websites, read critical analyses of his work. What did you think? I think I was completely wrong about his paintings. Not just about their value but about their meaning and importance. I'm beginning to understand why people find them powerful. I was surprised by her response. That must have been a lot of research. I needed to understand what I destroyed. Not just the money but the cultural significance. Isabella, I threw away pieces of history. Yes, you did. More than that, I threw away something you loved. Something you'd worked hard to acquire and cared deeply about. Even if they had been worth nothing, I had no right to make that decision for you. I felt something shift in our conversation. Thank you for saying that. I want to make this right somehow. I know I can't replace the paintings, but I want to understand your world better. Will you teach me about art? Mom, that's not necessary. Yes, it is. I've spent years dismissing something that's important to you because I didn't understand it. I want to learn. Not because of the money but because it matters to you. 6 months later, I was standing with my mother in the Museum of Modern Art in San Francisco, looking at a Jackson Pollock painting similar to one of the pieces she'd destroyed. I can see it now, she said quietly. The energy, the movement. It's like frozen motion. That's exactly what Pollock was trying to capture. Isabella, I need to ask you something. When you were growing up, did I always dismiss your interests this way? I thought about her question. Not always. But you tended to show more enthusiasm for activities that matched your own interests and understanding. That was unfair to you. It was limiting for both of us. You missed out on learning about things I was passionate about, and I learned to stop sharing those passions with family. Mom nodded, studying the painting in front of us. I've been thinking about that a lot. About all the conversations we should have had, all the questions I should have asked. It's not too late to start having those conversations. Will you show me your new collection when you start acquiring pieces again? I smiled. The insurance settlement had been finalized, and I was already working with dealers to identify potential acquisitions. I'd like that. But Mom, I need you to be genuinely interested, not just polite. I promise. And Isabella? I'm proud of what you've built, your business, your success, your knowledge about art. I should have been saying that all along. As we walked through the museum together, I felt something I hadn't experienced with my family in years. Genuine connection based on shared learning rather than polite tolerance of our differences. My phone buzzed with a text from my art dealer. Found something special. Early Rothko, privately held, impeccable provenance. Interested. I looked at the message, then at my mother, who was studying a Kandinsky with genuine curiosity and asking thoughtful questions about color theory. I typed back, very interested. Let's discuss tomorrow. For the first time since the Pollock incident, I was excited about adding to my collection. But more importantly, I was excited about having someone in my family who would appreciate not just the investment value, but the cultural significance of what I was building. Sometimes the most valuable things we lose aren't measured in dollars, but in understanding. And sometimes, losing something precious can teach us to value what we still have the chance to build together. 3 months later, I was hanging my first new acquisition, a stunning Rothko color field painting in my downtown penthouse. My mother was there for the installation, asking questions about the artist's technique and the piece's place in art history. It's beautiful, she said, studying the deep reds and oranges. I can feel the emotion in it. That's exactly what Rothko wanted viewers to experience. Isabella, can I tell you something? Of course. Losing those Pollock paintings was the worst mistake I've ever made. But it taught me something important about listening to you, about respecting what you care about, and about not making assumptions about things I don't understand. I know, Mom. I never want to be that dismissive again. About your art, your work, or anything else that matters to you. As we stood together looking at the new painting, I realized that while the Pollock collection could never be replaced, something equally valuable had emerged from its loss. A family relationship built on genuine understanding rather than polite indifference. And that, I thought, was worth more than any amount of insurance money.
Hi, I'm Tina. Today, I'm going to tell you my story. You know those moments when your entire world shatters, and the one person who should be there for you just isn't? That happened to me. Noah and I were that couple, the kind everyone envied. High school sweethearts, married young, thriving careers, and then finally, our beautiful son, Jake. Look at him, Noah. He has your eyes, I whispered the day Jake was born. Noah couldn't stop smiling. And your dimples, babe, he's perfect. He held Jake like he was made of glass, as if the slightest pressure might break him. But life has a cruel way of proving just how fragile things really are. We lost Jake in a car accident when he was only 4. One moment, he was in the backseat, singing along to his favorite cartoon song. The next, I still can't talk about that day without breaking down. That's when everything changed. Noah started pulling away. He spent more and more time at his mother's house. Helen, my mother-in-law, had always had this way about her, even before the accident. But after we lost Jake, she became something else entirely. Noah, sweetie, your mother needs you right now. She's not handling Jake's passing well, she'd say, her voice laced with just the right amount of vulnerability. Mom, I'll be right there. And just like that, he'd leave. Again. One night, I tried to reach him. Noah, I need you too. We should be grieving together. He sighed, rubbing his temples. Tina, you don't understand. Mom's all alone in that big house. She keeps having these anxiety attacks about Jake. And what about my anxiety attacks, my sleepless nights? That's different. You have your friends, your sister. Mom only has me. Helen knew exactly what she was doing. I overheard her on the phone with Noah once. A mother's love is different, sweetheart. A wife can move on, find someone else. But a mother? We carry that pain forever. And the worst part, Noah believed her. Every word. Every manipulation. Every guilt trip. I think your mom needs grief counseling, I suggested one day. His jaw tensed. Don't start, Tina. Mom's dealing with this in her own way. She needs family, not strangers. And what about what I need? No. He grabbed his keys without looking at me. Mom's expecting me for dinner. Don't wait up. That was when my best friend, Ivy, finally said what I had been too afraid to admit. Tina, honey, when was the last time Noah spent a full day with you? I had to think about it. Actually think about it. I don't remember. And how often is he at Helen's? Every day. Sometimes he even sleeps there. Ivy reached across the table, squeezing my hand. This isn't normal, Tina. You lost Jake too. You're his wife. You should be his priority. Her words snapped something in me. For the first time since Jake's death, I saw things clearly. How Helen had worked, systematically, methodically, to pull Noah away from me. How she had weaponized grief. And how my husband had chosen his mother over his grieving wife. But the final blow came on a Sunday night. Helen had invited both of us for dinner, which was unusual. She usually only invited Noah, claiming she wasn't up for company. Noah, could you help me in the kitchen? Helen's sugary sweet voice made my skin crawl. I followed them quietly, lingering just outside the door. Honey, I'm worried about Tina, Helen whispered. She's not handling Jake's passing like a mother should. Always so composed, it's not natural. My heart stopped. Not natural. I had cried myself to sleep for months, alone, while Noah comforted his mother. Mom, Tina is just different. Everyone grieves differently. Different isn't always good, sweetie, Helen murmured. A real mother would be devastated, unable to function. Look at me, I can barely get through the day without you. But Tina, she's at work, meeting friends. It's like she's already moving on from our Jake. I waited for Noah to defend me, to tell his mother that I cried in the shower so no one would hear, that I still couldn't look at Jake's photos without breaking down, that I kept his favorite stuffed dinosaur under my pillow. But Noah said nothing. You need someone strong, Noah, someone who can support you through this. Tina, she's just not strong enough for you. That's when I stepped into the room. Helen's false concern. Noah's guilt. The sight of them together made my stomach churn. Not strong enough. My voice was eerily calm. Let me tell you what's not strong, Helen. Manipulating your son away from his grieving wife isn't strong. Using our dead child as a weapon isn't strong. Tina. Noah took a hesitant step toward me, but I held up a hand. No, Noah, I'm done. While you've been here, playing the devoted son, I've been alone. Completely alone. Did you know I had to pack up Jake's room by myself? That I handled his preschool memorial alone? That I've been going to grief counseling alone for months? Helen clutched her chest dramatically. Noah, she's attacking me. After everything, everything. Everything, Helen. My voice didn't waver. Everything you've done to drive a wedge between us? To make sure Noah stays your little boy instead of being my husband. Later that night, I called Ivy, My hands were still shaking. He just stood there, eye. While his mother basically called me a bad mom because I'm trying not to fall apart completely. Oh, honey, what are you going to do? I exhaled slowly. I don't know. I can't keep living like this. It's like I lost both Jake and Noah, but Noah chose to leave. There was a pause, then Ivy's voice shifted, thoughtful. You know what's crazy? Helen only acts like this when there's an audience, when she's trying to prove something. And that's when it hit me. Helen's grief wasn't just grief. It was calculated. Every tear, every sigh, every moment of fragile sadness, she performed it. For Noah, for control. Ivy, I think I have an idea. I know that tone, Tina. What are you thinking? Helen wants an audience. Let's give her one. But this time, everyone's going to see the real show. The next week, I set everything in motion. Helen had a weekly bridge club meeting every Thursday. It was her stage, her chance to play the grieving grandmother in front of her friends. Ivy adjusted the tiny microphone under my collar. Are you sure about this? I met her eyes. Helen loves an audience. Let's make sure she has the right one. That Thursday, I arrived early. Helen, Noah said you wanted to talk about Jake's memorial garden. She blinked, surprise. Oh, yes. But my bridge club. I'll be quick. Promise. Her friends started arriving right on cue. I could hear them chatting in the living room. Then, right on schedule, Noah walked in. Mom? Tina. What's going on? Perfect. All the players were in place. Helen's voice softened instantly. Noah, honey, she cooed, I was just telling Tina that maybe she should step back from the memorial garden plans. Let me handle it. A grandmother's touch, you know. I tilted my head. You mean like how you've been handling everything else? Making sure Noah stays here with you instead of at home with his wife. Helen gasped. Noah, do you hear how she's attacking me? I pulled out my phone and turned the screen toward her. Actually, Helen, everyone can hear you right now. Her face went pale. You're recording me. Not just today. I tapped the screen, playing back weeks of conversations. Helen telling Noah I wasn't grieving properly. Helen suggesting Noah should just stay with her permanently. Helen laughing with her friends about how Tina's too weak to handle loss like a real mother. A stunned silence filled the room. Mom, Noah's voice was barely a whisper. Did you really say those things about Tina? Helen's mask cracked. I was trying to protect you. She's not good enough for you. Not strong enough. A murmur spread through the living room. Gasps. Whispers. The weight of an audience. Helen had never intended to see her like this. Noah's face went blank as reality finally hit him. Noah's voice was weak. Mom, maybe we should take a break. Just for a while. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. A break? That's your response? After everything you just heard? Tina, please, understand, she's my mother. I shook my head, something inside me breaking for the last time. And I was your wife. Past tense, that was all I needed to hear. I reached into my purse and pulled out an envelope. I had these drawn up last week. I set the divorce papers on Helen's pristine kitchen table. Helen's lips curled into a triumphant smile, but it made me sick. Even now, she thought she had won. I turned to her, my voice steady. You can have him, Helen. Hope you're ready to take care of your baby boy forever, because that's what you've created. A man who can't be a husband because he's too busy being a son. Then I walked into the living room, facing the stunned faces of Helen's bridge club. Ladies, thank you for being here today. I'm sure many of you have children. If you ever think about destroying their marriages, just remember this moment. As I left Helen's house for the last time, the whispers began. The murmurs of disapproval. The unraveling of Helen's carefully curated image. And Noah? He was exactly where he chose to be, stuck in the web his mother had spun, with no one to blame but himself. It's amazing how fast news travels in a small community. Within weeks, Helen's reign crumbled. Did you hear? Ivy nearly vibrated with glee over coffee one morning. Helen's been redecorating Noah's old bedroom. He's still living there. Can you believe it? I could. The bridge club disbanded. The hospital volunteer committee politely distanced themselves. The country club quietly revoked her membership. Helen got exactly what she wanted, her son all to herself. And Noah? He didn't even fight for the house in the divorce. He was too busy cleaning up the wreckage of his mother's social life. 3 months after I left those papers on the table, it was final. One evening, as I tended to Jake's memorial garden, Noah appeared. "Tina, I've been thinking," he started, hesitant. "About everything. About what Mom did. What I let her do." I stood up, brushing dirt off my knees. "You don't get to have this conversation with me now. Please just listen. I've started therapy. I'm trying to understand why I let her control everything. Why I couldn't be there for you when Jake—" I cut him off. "Say it, Noah, when Jake died. I say it every day in my support group, the one I found by myself while you were busy being the perfect son." Pain flickered across his face. "I know I messed up, but maybe we could try again. Now that I see Mom for who she really is." I looked at him, really looked at him. The man I'd loved since high school. The father of my son. The husband who had abandoned me when I needed him most. "Do you want to know what I see, Noah?" My voice was quiet but firm. "I see a man who still calls his mother Mom while talking about how she destroyed his marriage. You're not here because you changed. You're here because Helen's life is falling apart." Noah said nothing. Because he knew I was right. Last I heard, Noah was still living with Helen, working from home to take care of her. She got exactly what she wanted. And he got exactly what he deserved. Me, I'm happy, really happy. I lead grief support groups now, helping other parents navigate the impossible journey of losing a child. Jake's memorial garden blooms every spring, and I tend to it alone, by choice this time, not circumstance. Because the greatest revenge isn't making someone suffer. It's thriving despite them, while they destroy themselves with their own toxicity. And that's exactly what I did. "Impressive work, Michael," Marcus said, scrolling through my presentation. "This security system could revolutionize how we protect corporate networks." I nodded, masking my pride. 2 years of relentless work had led to this moment. "Thank you, sir. The neural network's ability to detect and adapt to emerging cyber threats is entirely unique. We could patent this within months." My name is Michael Chen, and at 32, I had created something that could change the cybersecurity industry forever. An artificial intelligence capable of evolving faster than any hacker, shielding networks in real time without human intervention. Marcus leaned back in his leather chair, his expression unreadable. "The board meeting is next week. I want you to send me all documentation, every line of code, every test result." Something in his tone made me pause. 5 years at TechShield Industries had taught me to read my boss's moods. Something wasn't right. "Of course," I said carefully, though I should be there to explain the technical aspects. "That won't be necessary." His reply was too smooth. I understand it well enough to present it myself. Of course he did. Lately, Marcus had been taking credit for my work. Small things at first, a feature here, an innovation there. But this was different. This was my life's work. That evening, as I prepared the files he requested, a message popped up on my screen. "Sarah, HR, emergency meeting. Tomorrow, 9:00 a.m. mandatory." I leaned back, my mind racing. Pieces clicked into place. Marcus wouldn't dare, would he? The next morning, I stepped into the conference room to find Marcus, Sarah, and 2 security guards waiting. "Michael," Marcus said, not even bothering to disguise his smirk. "We've discovered some concerning behavior, unauthorized use of company resources, working on personal projects during company hours." I remained silent, watching him lay his trap. "Furthermore," he continued, savoring every word, "he violated your contract by developing competing technology while employed here. As per company policy, all your work belongs to TechShield. Effective immediately, we'll be taking control of the project." I exhaled slowly. "You mean you'll be taking control?" His grin widened. "Pack your things. Security will escort you out." Through the office window, I saw him rehearsing his boardroom presentation, already basking in his stolen triumph. He thought he had won. Thought he had erased me with a few manufactured accusations. What he didn't know was that I had seen this coming months ago. The AI had an undocumented feature, a hidden protocol buried deep in its neural pathways. A trigger set to activate exactly 30 days after deployment. That night, in my apartment, I opened my laptop, accessing the hidden backup server. Every conversation with Marcus, every stolen idea, every manipulated report, and most importantly, every change he had made to my code after stealing it. A message popped up from Tom in it. Tom, he's already modifying the base code, trying to make it look like his work, just like you said he would. I smiled. Marcus was so busy erasing my fingerprints, he didn't realize he was setting off the countdown himself. In 30 days, when the system went live for the board, it would do exactly what it was designed to do: expose every security threat to the company, including the one sitting in the CEO's office. For weeks, I watched from a distance as Marcus prepared to unveil his revolutionary AI system. Tom kept me updated on every change, every attempt to erase my name. He's completely rewriting the documentation. One of Tom's messages read, "Erasing all traces of you," but he doesn't understand half the architecture. He's making mistakes. Perfect. Every sloppy modification Marcus made only reinforced the hidden protocol I had embedded deep within the system. Like a digital immune response, it would recognize and expose any unauthorized interference, along with the one responsible. 20 days after my firing, I received an unexpected visitor. Sarah from HR stood at my apartment door, glancing over her shoulder before stepping inside. "Michael," she said, lowering her voice, "I need to tell you something about Marcus." I let her in curious. Sarah had always been his loyal enforcer. What had changed? "He's done this before." She perched on the edge of my couch, her fingers gripping a small thumb drive. At his last company, he stole a major project and fired the lead developer. The guy tried to fight back, but she hesitated. The evidence disappeared, just like your personnel files are disappearing now. I kept my face neutral. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because it's wrong," she said simply, "and because I found something when I was archiving your files." She handed me the drive. Original project proposals from 2 years ago. Your proposals. Timestamps, signatures. Marcus must have missed them. I turned the device over in my palm, already knowing it would fit perfectly with the evidence I had been gathering. "Thank you, Sarah, but aren't you worried about your job?" She straightened, smoothing her blazer. "Some things are more important than jobs, Michael." Then, after a pause, she added with a small smile, "Besides, I already have interviews lined up. What Marcus is doing isn't just unethical, it's illegal." After she left, I checked my hidden server. 10 days until activation. Marcus had scheduled a board presentation for exactly 30 days after my firing. He wanted to establish ownership of the project as quickly as possible. My phone buzzed. "Tom again. You need to see this. He's trying to patch in new security protocols, making a mess of the core functions." I logged in remotely through a secure connection Tom had maintained. There it was, Marcus blindly tampering with the AI's fundamental architecture. Every attempt to overwrite my work created new vulnerabilities, new gaps that the system was designed to expose. 7 days before the presentation, I received an unexpected message from Marcus himself. "Michael, upon review, perhaps we were hasty in terminating your position. Would you be interested in discussing a consulting role? Limited scope, of course." I smirked. He was getting nervous. Emails appeared on the screen. Marcus taking credit for my work. Messages detailing how he orchestrated my firing. The AI's voice echoed through the stunned silence of the boardroom. "What you are seeing is a comprehensive security audit. My primary function is to identify and expose threats to system integrity. The most significant threat detected: systematic theft of intellectual property by Marcus Wheeler." Gasps rippled through the room. Then Sarah's documented evidence appeared. Proof of Marcus's history, how he had stolen ideas before, how he had erased others' contributions and claimed them as his own. Then came the final blow, the original project proposal sheet, saved and timestamped, with my name on it. "Turn it off," Marcus shouted, jabbing frantically at the controls. But the system no longer responded to him. It had recognized him as a threat, and just like any other security risk, it had locked him out. One of the board members stood, his expression unreadable. "Mr. Wheeler, what is the meaning of this?" "It's a trick," Marcus stammered. A disgruntled ex-employee trying to. Actually, a voice interrupted from the doorway. Tom stepped into the room, holding a stack of printed documents. "It's exactly what the AI was designed to do: protect intellectual property and expose security threats. Michael Chen built this system. And these," he held up the files, "are the original development logs proving his ownership. The boardroom erupted into chaos. Journalists scribbled notes. Investors made frantic calls. And Marcus? He looked like a man watching his world collapse. My phone buzzed. A new message. Charles Montgomery, board chairman. Mr. Chen, would you be willing to meet to discuss your AI system? The real one, not the compromised version Mr. Wheeler attempted to present. I smiled, typing back. Of course. Though you should know, what you saw today was the real system. It protects against all security threats, including corporate espionage. By that evening, Marcus was escorted out of the building. By morning, the scandal had hit the tech blogs. AI exposes corporate theft during live demo. The headline spread like wildfire. 1 week later, I sat across from the board of directors. They listened intently as I outlined my true vision for the AI. How it wasn't just designed to protect networks, but to ensure corporate transparency and accountability. When I finished, Charles Montgomery leaned forward. We'd like to offer you a position, Mr. Chen, Chief Technology Officer, full control over your AI's development, and of course, complete patent rights under your name. I accepted, on one condition. Tom would head my development team, and Sarah would lead a new corporate ethics division. Charles smiled. Done. As for Marcus, last I heard, he was facing multiple lawsuits, not just from TechShield, but from his previous companies. The AI hadn't just exposed his theft of my work. It had revealed a pattern of deception spanning years. Sometimes revenge isn't about destruction. It's about letting the truth reveal itself at exactly the right moment. Now, when I pass by my new office, Marcus's former office, I think about something my father used to say. Intelligence without integrity is just a weapon pointed in the wrong direction. Marcus thought he was stealing a weapon. Instead, he armed it against himself. The AI system is now an industry standard. It doesn't just protect against external threats, it stops the internal ones too. And every time it exposes another corporate thief, I remember that moment in the boardroom. Marcus's face when he realized the truth. He spent so much time trying to erase me from my own creation. He never realized that my real signature wasn't in the documentation. It wasn't in the code comments. It was in the heart of the system itself, an unshakable commitment to exposing the truth. Because sometimes the best security system isn't just about protecting data. Sometimes it's about protecting what's right.